Welcome back to the Sit for Halter podcast, friends. Today's guest is somebody whose voice you've likely heard echoing through arenas across the Midwest. Mike Huntoon is a show announcer with an unmistakable presence. He's a halter horse lover and has a true appreciation for great conformation. But before the microphone, his journey started like many of ours with a love for horses and willingness to work hard. From early days as an assistant trainer in the halter horse program to balancing life in the announcer's booth and the show pen, he's seen this industry from every angle. So in this conversation, we'll talk about horses who shaped him, the shows that inspired him, and the behind-the-scenes world of announcing that most exhibitors never get to see. You're going to love this one, so let's get started. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thank you for being here. I look forward to everybody hearing more about you and recognizing your voice. So let's just start with a background on you. Your voice is familiar at the horse shows. So let's start with that part of your story.
I guess I can just kind of start from the beginning as far as horses
Sure.
go. So, when I was a kid, and I've always had horses as long as I can remember, from a little pony when I was a kid. My parents weren't into showing at all, so I kind of grew up, and we'd load up in the horse trailer and we'd go camp, and we'd trail ride for you know a 3 or 4 day weekend. That's kind of what we did. That's kind of what my parents still do. My parents still have, I think, 4 horses at home, and they're all getting close to 30. Um, yeah, my dad doesn't think a horse is a real horse unless you can saddle it up and go ride it up in the mountains and hunt. That's kind of what he's into. So that's kind of what I grew up with. Um, like everybody, or like a lot of people, kind of in the '90s, they had a backyard stud, and he was
Mm-hmm.
actually a really nice paint horse. And if the ranch stuff was what it is, or if if the ranch stuff then was what it is now, he'd actually been a pretty nice horse for that. He made a lot of nice horses for that. But through that, my parents became friends with a guy named Mike Hoxie who showed paint halter horses. And so I kind of knew him. I didn't have a lot of time for horses beyond just, weekend riding and stuff because I played really high level baseball in the summers and then kind of planned on that as, beyond high school, playing some college baseball and stuff. I got hurt. That kind of became clear that wasn't going to be a thing. And so through Mike, that kind of became my way of being competitive. Um, so he kind of guided me a little bit. We we bought a broodmare. I just bred her to a horse called Secure for Years, who was here in Michigan. Was fortunate enough for that baby to be good enough for me to kind of learn my way through it.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up putting, I don't know, a couple hundred points on that horse. So
Mm-hmm.
um I was fortunate enough as I kind of got started because my parents also didn't want to spend the money to send me to a horse trainer, right?
Uh-huh.
So I kind of had to learn my way through. Um, Gary, Colleen, Bob, and Brandy Miller as the family that owned Secure for Years, and they were super
Mm-hmm.
helpful with getting me started. And then I met a guy named Mike Cinco, also here in Michigan, because my sister showed a little bit of 4-H stuff, and she was having some issues with her horse, and Mike was kind of one of the local trainers. So she ended up taking that mare to him. Well, Mike was really really into halter horses, kind of as a personal deal. So he kind of helped me get going, took me to my first quarter horse show, and it spiraled from there. And then people like Rick Leake and Krista Baldwin and Tom Robertson, all those people were really really good to me, and I was
Mm.
fortunate enough to learn enough from them to kind of do stuff myself as an amateur.
Yeah.
Um, I showed as an amateur for about 5 years, and then I went to work as an assistant trainer at Temptation Farm, Steve Jensen's place here in Freeland. Um, and that kind of rolled me into being a professional and kind of get going on that, and it's kind of led me to where I'm at now.
Do. So, what was it about the halter horse? You talked a little bit about what sounds like maybe a logical progression into it because you had somebody who was willing to help you that was really into halter
Yeah.
horses. But what for you did it?
So I enjoyed riding, but I enjoyed the people more than riding, really. So
Mm.
when we would trail ride, like it, I didn't live to ride. So I really really liked
Uh-huh.
horses and the social aspect and stuff, but didn't love riding. And when I saw that we could show these halter horses as young horses, and I didn't have to wait and be patient and all that stuff. Um,
Yeah.
that kind of piqued my interest. And then I just think that they're really cool horses. Like they have a presence
Mm-hmm.
that, some of my friends will kill me for this, but a Western pleasure horse, maybe doesn't have. Um,
They
and
won't. We won't tell anybody what you just said.
Yeah, I
We'll
won't tell
just
any of the Giddings
beep.
that
Yeah.
that I said that. So, no, I like that we can kind of get showing early. I think they're cool horses. My personality kind of jives with that, and yeah.
I love it. Um, so what about the announcer? So do you remember the first horse you ever showed or the first show you did as an announcer?
Sure, I remember both. First horse I ever showed was a mare named Danish Lace. She was by a horse called Glad I'm Tardy, out of a Skip a Star mare. That was the brood mare that I just, that I bought. I showed her a couple times just at some local open stuff. Um, and she went on and produced several superior halter horses for me and a bunch of futurity winners. And um, really just kind of lucky that the first mare I bought ended up, being a really nice producer. Just, sometimes we have dumb luck and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um, First horse show I ever announced was actually quarter horse show. It was an all novice show here in Michigan. I was on the Michigan quarter horse board at the time, and our normal announcer couldn't do it. And so we were talking about it at a board meeting. And I said, "Well, guys, I've announced a bunch of sporting events." I said, I can give it a shot." And the board was like, "Sure, let's do it." So I just kind of got that thrown in there, and things have progressed from there.
Yeah. You had the heartbeat and the voice. Done.
I hope.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I realized I knew you from probably Facebook and connections through the Michigan Quarter Horse Association when I did the episode with Chris and Austin.
Yep.
But it wasn't until the show at Cass County Fairgrounds this summer
Okay.
that I was like,
Yep.
wait a minute. Did somebody just say that's Mike Huntoon? And you were working, and I was trying to
Yep.
show my horse who was
Yep.
bucking.
Yep.
I don't know if you remember that, but we
I was
made a
there.
big scene.
Yep. I
Yeah,
was there.
we made a real big scene. I was so embarrassed. Wanted to beat the snot out of him, and I'm like, I
No,
can't do that. Anyway,
we've all been there.
but it was the first time I realized, hey, you've probably been announcing at shows that I've attended, and
Yep.
so it's great to see you at the Fall Color Classic a couple weeks ago. So, your time as an assistant trainer at a Halter horse facility, how did that opportunity come about, and what did you learn that shaped your journey going forward?
Sure. So yeah, as I mentioned, I worked at the Temptation Farm. It was back in 2005, 2006. I'd known Steve for quite a while just from showing and whatnot, and then I became really good friends with Troy Prime, who was the trainer there at the time. And at a horse show, I remember it was the Michigan Fraternity. I can't remember what show it was anymore. But I was talking to Troy about thinking about trying to do trying to be a professional, and he suggested that why don't I just bring a horse with me over to Temptation and be an assistant. Troy and Jody lived there on site, and I was fortunate enough to be able to live with them, and we just become lifelong friends. Troy was a groomsman at my wedding, and it's been great. Um, and Troy is an awesome horseman. They've kind of gone more into college equestrian stuff. Troy and Jody coach the equestrian team at Adrian College um,
Okay.
here in Michigan. But when I was at Temptation Farm, Steve had between 80 and 100 horses there, and we were managing all that. And he was just kind of getting into the embryo transfer stuff. And Brad Kumper was running Saginaw Valley Equine Clinic actually out of Steve's barn at the time. So we were constantly getting horses in, reset mares in that were somewhere between mostly and totally unbroken. And so I actually learned a lot just about being a horseman, almost as much as I really did about fitting and working halter horses, which has been super useful. And as far as just the halter horse stuff, when I was there, we had horses like She's Elusive and Elusive Caused Me and Step and Dominate, and we had a bunch of Steve had a bunch of really really high end world champion, reserve world champion and stuff. So I was able to work a lot with that, and I'll forever be grateful to Steve and Troy and Jody just for everything that I learned when I was there.
Yeah. Very cool. Sounds like a wide variety of experiences.
There was a lot going on, and like I said, if I'd have known that going in, maybe I'd have been a little more hesitant. But in the end, I learned a lot.
Yeah. Very cool. So are you still currently showing at all?
Yep.
Okay.
So I just showed at the Congress, just showed at the Michigan Fraternity. I've got a really, really good weanling filly for Justin Gooding. And I've got a good 2-year-old gelding for Alexis getting. So I've got a I've got one baby on the way. I've got an incredible out of an icon mare on the way.
Okay.
So
Very cool.
yeah.
So then how do you balance still working professionally in the industry in addition to the announcing? How do you balance those two things together?
So it actually works out pretty well because I show almost all fraternity stuff. So
Okay.
all my stuff is in the fall. So
Okay.
there's not really a lot of conflict. So this year was actually the first year I've shown a horse that was older than a yearling in probably 6 or 7 years. So yeah,
I like that. Go
yeah,
ahead. Sorry.
the timing works out well because, like I said, all my stuff is in the fall, but 85% of my announcing is in the summer. So,
hmm 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 So, what's your favorite thing about showing?
I mean, I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I really like seeing quick improvement with babies. I
Mm,
just love working with
yeah.
babies.
Yeah.
Week to week we can see improvements in these things, and that to me is really cool. And I think it's a really neat segment of the industry. I think we're a little bit unique in that I think we root for each other maybe a little bit more than some other segments of the horse industry. I think the BHF and stuff like that has kind of facilitated that maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
But I think it's a really good group of people.
hmm Yeah, I would agree. Very small but
Yep.
mighty in
Yep.
supporting one another and persevering. Especially, I think
Yep.
perhaps the number of amateurs. Well, maybe
Yes.
because our group is small or our niche is small, we have the
Mhm.
benefit of Facebook. We get to know a whole lot of people that we don't ever meet in person, but we see them
That's
doing the thing all by themselves.
Yep. That's also true.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what's your favorite horse? Who's your favorite horse that you've ever
Oh
shown?
man. My favorite horse is a mare, or it was a mare. She's passed on now, but her name was It's Cool to Be Me. I raised
Mm,
her out of the broodmare that I mentioned earlier. She was sired by Coolest Reflection. She was the first. She would have been that mare's third baby. But she was the first one that I raised that I had to take, and I didn't have to worry about is so and so going to be at the show? Do I need to avoid him or whatever? She was just a good enough horse that I could take and show. And it doesn't mean that we won every time, but I I didn't feel bad about showing against anybody. It was kind of a cool group of mares that was born that year. So we had She's Elusive, Guerlain, and Top Down Maserati, among a few. But just me as an amateur, we beat all those horses, multiple times, which was kind of fun. She ended up with over, I think, like 200, 250 points, something like that. A couple superiors, won the Michigan fraternity with her 4 times. And one of the cooler parts is that as we had that mare, my mom, who never had any interest in showing, just fell in love with Annie. Her barn name was Annie.
yeah,
And her 3-year-old year, my mom decided that she wanted to show, and she wanted to show Annie. And I'm like, I don't know, you really want to do this? And she's like, yep, I want to do it. So I don't think we started showing until like May, and we only left Michigan once. And she ended up third in the country in the Rookie of the Year stuff, and it was just a lot of fun.
that's
Um,
super cool.
yeah, and all the showing stuff was fun, but she was just the sweetest mare. Like she's the one horse I probably ever had where I wouldn't mind if a 2 or 3 year old kid walked in the stall, like she'd have just put her head down and everything would have been great.
Yeah.
Um, the other coolest horse that I've had was a mare by Mr. Elusive that I was partners with Justin Gooding. We won the Michigan fraternity with her as a baby, and then she had the wildest growth spurt that I've ever seen on a horse. We went from being kind of small as a baby to like a
hmm
16-2 yearling. I mean, just over the winter, it was just out of control and had all kinds of leg issues. We had to have surgery and all that. And we'd gotten her to the point where she was living a pretty normal life. We were never going to show her or whatever. We had her in foal to Solaris, and then just one day in the middle of summer, my wife actually walked out the barn to do chores, and she found her dead in her stall.
mm
But I don't know that I'll ever have a better horse than that. But
mm.
It's Cool to Be Me horse was my favorite horse.
Yeah. Mm. I'm sorry, that stinks.
That's it's that's part of having them. But yeah, I hope to never have that
Yeah.
particular experience ever again.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so maybe you've just touched on it, but how has the halter horse industry impacted you personally?
Oh, I mean, most of my best friends are from there, right? So, Justin Gooding is one of my very, very best friends, and then that led to me becoming friends with the rest of the Goodings, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with since they're all judges now. Garth Sinise and Austin are all judges. Um,
Hmm.
my wife has she has Western pleasure horses with Garth and Austin, so we become really good friends. I officiated Austin and Alexa's wedding, like 3 years ago now. Chris and Laura Penichero are some other really, really good friends, and I could just list them on and on. But yeah, and actually, it's not necessarily halter stuff, but I met my wife at a horse show. So if I hadn't gotten into the halter horses, I wouldn't have met her. So
Aha.
yeah, we met at a show in Escanaba, Michigan, up in the UP of all places. So
All right.
yeah,
And she's into horses, obviously. Met
yep,
her at a horse
yep,
show. Okay.
yep. Um, when I met her, she did kind of the Western all around stuff, and then as we progressed, she kind of stopped doing that and showed just the halter for a while. And then, gosh, back in I think it was like 2015, 2016, she decided I'm ready to ride again. So
Yeah.
um, I actually bought a 2-year old that Austin had won the Michigan fraternity with, and she showed her for gosh 5-6 years I think, and now she's got a 2-year old out of that mare with Austin right now. So
Very
yeah,
cool.
she really likes the horses too.
I love it. And you have, if I understand correctly, you have helped Austin's wife cross over to the halter
Yep.
world.
So Alexis last year dipped her toe in the halter pen.
Uh huh.
I had a yearling that Scott Hawk raised here in Michigan. And Alexis showed him and won the Michigan fraternity in the yearling colts. And then this year, I mentioned I had that a really nice weanling filly for Justin. Alexis
Hmm.
showed her in the amateur at the Michigan fraternity, and we swept all the baby filly classes in the open and the amateur. And then Alexis showed a 2-year-old gelding at the Congress, so she's kind of jumped right in. Um, and she's pretty hooked. So that's
I
been
love
fun.
it. Oh, I love it. I can't wait to
Yep,
meet her.
yep, it's been
Um,
fun.
Very cool. Very cool. I love it. Well, thank you for bringing her over. We
Yep,
appreciate it.
absolutely.
Very cool. So, shifting gears a little bit to
Yeah,
announcing,
sure.
you have a talent for bringing the energy, you bring personality, you are like the voice of reason almost in the pen. So how did that get started? Uh, you started with your board position, right? But then
Yep,
how did it evolve from there?
yep. So after I did that all novice show, MQHA hired me to do a few. Um, we have a couple regular announcers. We have Tom Gear announces a lot of stuff for the Michigan Quarter Association, and then Ken McClellan from Canada will always announce or generally announce our big show, the Harbor Classic in Ludington, and then usually our fraternity. But in times that they haven't done it, I've filled in there. And we used to have some shows in Allegan, Michigan, and I would announce those. And then that kind of rolled into the Michigan Paint Horse Club, hiring
Hmm.
me full time 2 years ago, start doing all their shows. So now I'm actually doing more paint shows than I am quarter horse shows. So
I guess I didn't think to ask you, have you ever shown the paints or just quarters?
so I've never actually shown at a paint show, um,
Okay,
but but I've shown some paint fraternity babies.
sure. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
we like you in the announcers booth, but we would
Yep.
also enjoy you in the pen too. So
Yep.
you're welcome.
It'll happen next year because the fill I've got of Justin is a double. So
Nice.
yep.
Very
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
So tell us something that we might not think about that happens or that goes into being a show announcer.
Sure. Um, there's a lot more going on up in there than I think most people realize. Certainly more than I realized when I first jumped in. There's a lot more going on than there is when you're announcing a sporting event. Um, and especially if it happens to be a show, and all the Michigan Paint Horse shows are this way, where you're not using tablets or iPads. So getting results radioed up while another class is going on, or I'm having to make gate calls, you know, while while my ring steward is radioing up results, can get kind of hectic. And actually, at a bigger show, halter can kind of be the most hectic because the speed with which horses are coming in and out, because our classes aren't very big, right?
Yep.
So, we've got one or two horses in a class, and then results are getting radioed up. And then when it comes time for grand and reserve, if I don't have an iPad or tablet, I've got all these sheets laid out in front of me, for every class. Um, Normally it's not a huge deal, but last year I did the Zone 8 show down in Cloverdale where we had 6 judges with no
Mm-hmm.
tablets.
Yep.
And so trying to get the halter results, announced and in a timely manner and making sure people stick around for the grand and reserve. And
Mm.
there's just, for like the horsemanship and the show, all the pattern stuff, it's not bad because I'm just sitting there waiting for everybody to get done with their pattern and then I get results up. But if it's, the halter, the pleasure, the hunter or saddle, I'm making gate calls while the previous results are getting radioed up, and it can get a lot more hectic than I think people realize.
Yeah,
But
no
it,
doubt.
it actually makes it kind of fun and makes the day go kind of quick.
I bet. Yeah, because sometimes our classes are really small
Yeah.
and we're caught off guard. I know.
Yep.
Yeah. Now I know that you are
Yep.
too.
Yep. Yep.
Hmm. So tell us about a favorite moment that was at a show or a show that you loved announcing that really stands out for you.
Sure. I announced the Michigan Quarter Horse Fraternity in 2021 because Ken McClellan couldn't do it. I can't remember why anymore, but they asked me to do it, and that was a lot of fun just because it's really high end horses, um, really high end exhibitors for that, and so that was a lot of fun.
Cool. Why don't we take a minute to talk about that a little bit? Give it a little plug. The
Sure.
Michigan Horse Futurity. Tell us about that.
Sure. So, Austin Gooding, Chris Panichero, and I co-chair, along with Jeff Moody, um,
Hmm.
co-chair of the Michigan Quarter Horse Fraternity. I think, and our stallion service sale. And
Hmm.
Chris and Austin and I took the stallion service sale over, I want to say maybe 6 or 7 years ago now. And at that point, our stallion service sale was totaling right around 40,000. We're now up over 100,000 for multiple years in a row. And this year, our fraternity paid out over 100,000 total for a weekend horse show, which
Mm,
better than anywhere else in the country. So we're pretty proud of what we've turned that into.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And uh, from a halter horse perspective,
Yep.
what classes do you offer for halter
Yep.
horses?
So for the halt horses, we have our stallion service sale, mare owner and stallion owner colts, and our mare owner and
Hmm.
stallion owner fillies for those horses that are eligible through our stallion service sale. So if you buy a breeding through our sale, you you get a free entry in the corresponding mare owner class, whether it's a colt or a filly. And
Hmm.
then the stallion owner gets a spot where they can send any baby by their horse into that class. So
Okay.
um and then we have a champion of champion stallion service baby class where we give away a really nice show halter for that in memory of Jim Evans, who some of your listeners might remember, some not. Jim was a big deal for Michigan Quarter Horse. Jim raised Mr. Conclusion,
Mm.
and he loved halter babies and all that. And Jim passed away. It's been probably a decade now, and but we still, Jim's still a pretty big deal with Michigan Quarter Horse. We do that in his memory. And then outside of our stallion service, we have open and non-pro weanling colts and open and non-pro weanling fillies, and that's open to babies by any horse. You don't have to buy anything through the sale. So, and
Okay.
this year our stallion service weanling class is paid just under 4,000 to win it.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah, yep, yeah. We're pretty proud of kind of what we've turned that into and what that keeps hopefully um, keep staying that way.
Hmm. Hmm. We'll give it another plug before we end today because I
Sure,
want to make sure that people include that in the mix of shows,
sure.
especially folks in the Midwest, because
Yep,
I did an episode with Chris and Austin, so there's more
yep,
information about it as well. But yeah, sounds
yep,
pretty
yeah,
amazing. I remember hearing Chris and Austin talk about how laid back it is and a
yeah,
great place
yep,
to get acquainted with the quarter horse shows, especially for a
yes,
person like myself who's been on the paint side. So
yep,
awesome, cool. So hopping back to things related to announcing, what are some of the
sure.
things that you do strategy wise that keep things running smoothly from your perspective?
So the biggest thing to make a horse show run smooth is having good, competent show management.
Mm.
Um,
Okay.
with Michigan Paint Horse Club, we have Ashley running that, and she's done a really, really good job. And it just we all work really well together. Bree Slager is the president of MPHC, and she's awesome, and she works her butt off for that club.
Yep.
Um, they're real lucky to have her. Another thing that's really important is having a really well constructed show bill, right? Um, we all want to get done on time. We all want things to move in a manner that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like the Fall Color Classic that you were just at was a way bigger show than what the club was planning on, and
Mm-hmm.
so that kind of got a little clunky, and we showed late, right? We've already had they actually asked me to help them with that show to kind of restructure show bills and do that thing, do that sort of thing
Mm-hmm.
to kind of make that show be a lot more exhibitor friendly next year. So for those of you listening who show at that show's not going to go near as late next year. So another thing that I think is really key to having a really good horse show is the club putting an effort to have activities that kind of foster some engagement and some camaraderie
Mm-hmm.
among exhibitors. If people are happy, then people aren't coming up to the show office or the announcer's booth and complaining about what's going on, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so whatever we can do to keep exhibitors happy, I'm in favor of.
Mm-hmm. So when you mentioned the show bill that's
Yep.
not clunky, what would be an example of some or any example of a show bill, not somebody specific, but
Yep.
how is it that we order things that doesn't go well versus?
So you just kind of want to order things on a show bill that makes sense, right? You don't want to have some of the halter, and then I've been out some shows or been at some shows that'll throw like a lunge line class in the middle of the halter, and that doesn't make
Mm,
sense to anybody. It doesn't make sense to
mhm,
exhibitors. Doesn't make sense to judges. Doesn't make sense to anything.
mhm,
Um, just having things that make sense coming in
sure.
in succession.
Mhm, okay. Um, do you have to adapt the way that you announce based on the show that you're at?
I mean, I really don't. Other than like the Fall Color Classic when there's a lot of people, we're kind of
Mhm,
moving through. I'll probably spend more time making class calls than I normally
mm,
would, just to try to let people know, hey, the stuff's moving kind of fast. I don't want anybody to miss anything.
mhm,
But as far as my style, I don't really change too much
yeah,
based on what show I'm doing.
yeah. I think from an exhibitor's perspective,
Hmm.
the quality of the sound system in a facility makes a huge
Yes.
difference because when you
Yes.
hear that voice coming across the microphone and you know it's the announcer who has the correct information and what class you're on, but you can't understand what they're saying,
Yep.
it is crazy making.
Yep. And the other thing that I try to do, um, and I've had people say that they appreciate it. It's kind of what I've learned from being an exhibitor is that I try not to talk more than I have to,
Mm,
because the more stuff that I say, the less stuff that people are going to actually listen to.
yep.
So I like kind of being in a spot where people kind of get used to, if I'm saying something, there's generally a pretty important reason that I'm saying it. You'll have some horse show announcers that just talk and talk and talk, and it just kind of becomes white noise. And I try not to do that. I try to make whatever I'm saying intentional and for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I just imagine when we're at the stalls and it's a couple classes before you need to head to the pen, there's so much happening. Mind is going fast, nervous, all the things. A horse may or
Yeah.
may not be, acting the way it's
Yep.
supposed to. And
Yep.
so, yeah, direct, brief is super
Yep.
helpful. But
Yep.
yeah, I think not only the voice, but quality of the sound system and the volume, being able to hear it throughout the barn because
Right.
no matter how
Yep.
good the information is, if you can't hear it, it's really
Yep.
frustrating.
And
Yeah.
some of the like Fall Color Classic. I'm in MSU, and we're fortunate enough. There's a really good system there, and
Mm-hmm.
people there to fix it if something goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
At some of these fairgrounds we're kind of at the mercy of whatever happens to be there,
Sure.
which sometimes can get kind of frustrating. But yeah,
Yeah. It comes with the territory. You
Yeah.
just hope for the best.
Yep.
That you don't miss
Yep.
a class.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And people come up to the show office or come to the announcer booth and say, I can't hear here. And I'm like, well, I
Yeah.
don't know what to do, but I'll try to fix it. But yeah,
Yeah.
'cause some of the facilities
Yeah.
we're at, it can get that part of it. It's out of our hands, and that gets frustrating for everybody. So
Sure. Yeah. So I understand that you are in pursuit of your judge's card.
yes.
Um, so what inspired you to do that?
So it's actually something that I've kind of considered doing for quite a while.
Hmm.
I got to credit Austin Gooding for kind of finally giving me the final nudge to really do it.
Uh-huh.
Austin's one of my very best friends. Like I said, I officiated his and Alexa's wedding a few years ago. Austin started judging open shows and stuff, I think in 2022. And
Hmm.
um, through his pushing, I started doing it in 2023. Actually judged an open show with him, and then I've kind of gone from there. And then I applied for my paint horse card last year, narrowly missed it. I'm gonna retest again for that next year. So yeah, it's something I've always wanted to do, but Austin kind of give me a kick in the butt a couple years ago to really get going with it.
Yeah. So can you walk us through the process of the steps you need to take?
Sure. Um, so there's an initial application process where you have to get references from an APHA judge, an APHA member, and then a personal reference. And then if you make it past that application and get selected to test, testing is in May every year in Denton, Texas, and there's a written test component, video judging, live judging, and an interview component to the test. You have to score an 85 on the written test. You have to
Hmm.
score an 80 combined on the video and the live judging, and then you have to pass the interview. Um, I passed the written test, passed the interview. I scored a 77 on my judging, and he did the 80. Didn't get it, so I'm gonna
Sure.
retest again in 2026. So, and actually, what was one of the frustrating things is one of the classes that killed me was actually one of the halter classes.
Oh,
Um,
shoot.
they APHA DQ'd one of the horses for being lame in the class. I didn't call it lame, and had I called it lame, I probably would actually got my card. So that's kind of been eating at me ever since May. But
Shoot. That's right. It'll happen.
yep,
It'll happen. Then we'll see you in the middle of
yep.
the ring instead of on the outside.
I hope so. Hope
So how do you
to do both.
anticipate that will, I'm sorry.
I said I hope to do
Yeah.
both. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Do you think that judging will change the way you look at horses or the industry as a whole?
yeah. So since I've been judging, I've kind of gotten a real appreciation for some disciplines that I haven't had a lot of exposure to.
Hmm.
Um, when I was actually preparing for the testing for the paint horse stuff, Kathy Williams let Austin and I, because Austin was testing for his quarter horse card. So she let Austin and I come to her farm and practice judge some jumping, because Kathy's one of
Hmm.
the few people left in Michigan that still do a lot of jumping.
Hmm.
So it was just incredible learning from her, in-depth stuff about all the components that go into jumping, whether it's hunter hack, eck over fences, or kind of whatever, and just
Hmm.
it's made me really appreciate those horses even more than what I already did.
Cool. I didn't think about that. The over fences, we don't see. I
Yeah.
don't stay at the horse show long enough to watch any of
Yep.
the other classes.
Yeah.
We
And
show
and,
halter
and
and Saturday morning, and I'm out.
yep. Yep. And I was, for a long time, I was the same way. So yeah,
Yeah.
and you know, people ask me what I like judging and stuff. And a good horse is a really good horse. I don't care what discipline it is. It's neat to watch a
Mm.
good jumper, or a good um a good run in the showmanship, or a good
Hmm.
roper. Anything that's good is really cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Um,
Yeah.
so when you're announcing, you get a front
Hmm.
seat, right, of seeing
Yeah.
exhibitors and horses together.
Yep.
What trends have you seen in the halter industry lately?
I think horses are just better because they've been
Mm.
forced to be. I think
Hmm.
judges have, and a lot of this comes from WCHA, and that judges have been harder on horses that aren't sound. And
Mm.
I think it was kind of, I think it was frustrating to the industry at first, but it's made it a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Breeders and trainers have adjusted. We don't see horses at the Congress and the World Show that have leg issues like we used to. I think it's improved halter horses across the board.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about changes in the breeding side of the industry? Do you think that's had an influence in um, selection or soundness or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I do because our show horses are more sound, and those show
Mm-hmm.
horses become our breeding horses, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it started in the show pen and it made its way into the breeding shed, which it needed to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, again, thinking through your perspective as an announcer and then becoming that judge. So, what
Yeah.
makes a great exhibitor and or exhibitor and show person pair, a show horse
Um,
pair?
yeah, yeah. For me, it's really nice to watch a team that's clearly prepared.
Mm.
And it's
Yeah.
pretty easy, regardless of discipline, to tell who has actually ridden or worked with their horse at the level that's necessary. Um, Now I say that, but as someone who shows a lot of babies, horses can always make us look dumb, right? I mean, I've went out there and had a baby flip over and do all the stuff, as I'm sure you have, but it's usually
Mm-hmm.
pretty easy to tell who's prepared and who's not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially when it comes to the pattern classes. And it's really enjoyable to watch the team that you can tell has worked together and is really prepared.
Yeah. Um, we don't do a whole lot in the pen with our halter horses. It's not easy. I don't
Right.
I don't mean to say that it's easy, but there's not a lot that's expected of us other than walk, trot, turn, line up,
Yep.
set up, and we're just
Get your
trying
horse
to
shown.
keep
Yep.
our yeah. So
Yep.
how does somebody look like a well-oiled machine versus not? Like, what are some things that maybe if you're thinking about a person who's trying to learn how to be a better showman or
Yep.
present their horse more effectively, what are some things that you would
Yep.
say are helpful?
So one thing that drives me nuts in the halter, and there's a few other. I think this is Clint Fullerton's biggest pet peeve too, is hand setting feet. If you're out there hand setting feet, unless it's clear that this horse just isn't paying attention to what you're doing, it looks very obvious to me that you just haven't your horse just isn't broke.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that really drives me nuts. Another thing that, and I'll do clinics. I'll help out a lot of like our all around trainers and stuff in the state with getting their people ready for the performance halter and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that really drives me nuts is not having your horse straight in line. If
Mm.
you're cocked sideways, like I can't look at your horse compared to the horse in front of it and behind it very well. Um,
Yeah.
if your horse if your horse's hip is away from me, it's going to take away from what that horse's hip is because I can't see it straight compared to the horses behind it in front of it. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say in the halter, those two things: get your horse straight and get your horse broke to set up off your foot.
Mm. I think that was something that Clint said in an episode that I had with him was the
I'm
importance
certain
of
because I
coming in
know.
straight.
Yep, I know just from
Yeah.
showing to him and talking to him at shows that I've announced when he judged. Like I know that drives him absolutely nuts too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And watching classes and seeing the one in the lineup that's, you know,
Yep.
45-degree angle from everybody else and
Yep.
exhibitor seems unaware of it.
Yep.
It's hard to look across the line and I guess evaluate that horse in the same way.
Yep. Absolutely.
Um, I pay much more attention now to the horse in front of me and the horse behind me and trying to be lined up with my
Yeah.
peers.
Yep.
Anna Horn was the one who taught me about as you're taking those last steps before you stop,
Yep.
look over the hip. And for whatever reason, looking over the top
Yep.
helps line up
Yep.
perhaps what's behind you and who's in front of you. Those little tweaks that
yep.
help.
It's funny you say that because I had to work on that with Alexis when she first started doing the halter stuff. Those last few steps, I like to tell people to actually walk backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And that way
Yep.
you can see where you're at.
Uh-huh.
And it just kind of helps, at least for me, walking backwards those last couple steps actually helps kind of orient me, where I need to be.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I learned the hard way was if I was walking up and paying attention to a horse in front of me, very carefully trying to be straight, put the brakes on. My horse's hind end is dug into the dirt
Yep.
and it looks ridiculous. And he,
Yep.
that's his weak spot. And so I'm
Yep.
emphasizing the weak area because I'm not walking gently into the
Yep.
stop and the setup.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All those little tweaks make a big difference.
Yep. And it's, it's stuff that we all have to do wrong to learn it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's, like you said, it doesn't look like we do a lot out there in the pen, but there's more to
Right.
it than what people realize to get our particular horse to
Yes.
look its best. Because we don't
Yep.
show them all the same.
Agreed.
So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing the difference in just a little tweak, head a little higher, all that stuff is
Yep.
really important as it comes together
Yep.
to create the picture. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So you mentioned a couple of things related to making a horse show fun and the importance of that, exhibitors being happy.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
what kinds of things have you experienced maybe as an exhibitor, but across the board, what kinds of things do you think about?
Just as far as how to make horse shows better for everybody.
Enjoyable. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'll kind of go back to having good show management. If
Mm-hmm.
if you start the day by going in the show office and whoever's in there is friendly and welcoming and helpful, that's going to make everything go better. If you have show management with someone who's kind of crabby or kind of standoffish or all that, people aren't going to feel welcome. And
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's somebody new, if that person doesn't feel welcome, likelihood of them coming back isn't real high. There's
Yeah.
plenty of other places to show or plenty of other things for people to spend their money on. Nobody wants to be treated poorly. So I think the single most important thing is having good horse show management.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is I think people involved with whatever association is putting on that show being intentional about helping other people. So I'll never forget this. So at my very first quarter horse show, it was the Michigan Quarter Horse Fraternity. I didn't know anybody. And I got stalled next to Wayne Davis, right? Nobody knew who I was. But Wayne could not have been more supportive and helpful. And like I said, Wayne didn't know who the heck I was. Was I a 20-year-old kid with a Halter baby there? I mean, I had nothing to offer Wayne, right? But he was super helpful, and that's always stuck with me. And so once I kind of got established, knew what I was doing, I've always told MQHA to stall new people next to me whenever they can.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always tried to go out of my way to help people. And when I was on the board and when I was the president, I'd either kind of, walk the aisles or go around in my golf cart and try to make sure everybody at every barn was happy with what was going on, make sure everybody didn't, see if anybody needed anything or anything like that. And I think
Mm-hmm.
just little gestures, even if I didn't do anything for them, just the fact that somebody from the group checked on them
Mm-hmm.
tends to mean a lot to people.
Yeah.
And I think, little things like that end up going a long way towards making that entire horse show more fun for everybody.
Yeah. Good stuff. It's true. As a newish person to the scene, it's made a big difference to have friendly faces, familiar faces, good information available
Yep.
online,
Yep.
consistent information that's helpful too.
Yep. I agree.
Website, show bill, links, social media, just regular communication coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So let's bounce back to the Michigan Quarter Horse
Sure.
Futurity.
Yep.
Anything else that you want to tell us about that show and why people should go?
So, I mean, I think it's one of our two best shows, kind of depending on what you're looking for. Like I said, we paid out over 100,000 this year for a 4-day horse show. And we've got, we pay out classes across the board from the halter to the lunge line to the pleasure to the hunter and saddle. So it's got something for everybody. And like I said, our stallion service sale classes are closed to horses bought through the sale, but all our regular futurity stuff is open to any either NSBA or WCHA recognized breed. So,
okay.
and there's no there's no nomination form. So if you didn't show your yearling in the lunge line last year, that doesn't prevent you from showing in the 2-year-old pleasure this year or the 3-year-old hunter or saddle the following year. So
Okay. Awesome.
yeah, and
Do you
we're
have a website?
yep. So it's miquarterhorse.com. And all
Okay.
of our stuff is on there, from our show schedule and our show bills to our stallion service stuff. We're just really now starting to get stallion contracts get sent back in. Now the people are getting, we got done with the Congress, now just getting done with the World Show. People are starting to think about that stuff, and we're just getting. I think we've got. Austin just sent me the spreadsheet yesterday. I think we've got between 40 and 50 stallion contracts in already. Um, that number, we always hope to have that number be around 120 horses by sale day, which is, I believe, January 10th, whatever that Saturday is there.
Okay.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we do have there's a live component to our sale. Um, we also do that on Zoom, so you don't have to be there in person. You can do it on Zoom. And then whatever horses don't sell that day go on a site called biddingowl.com. And they're there for, I believe it's a
Mm-hmm.
week. And then if anything doesn't sell there, then you can just call the Michigan Quarter Horse office and you can buy it at the minimum bid. So our bids start at 60% of the listed stud fee or a minimum of $400. So
Okay.
yeah,
Cool. Thanks for that.
yeah,
So some last quick fun questions.
okay.
What is your go-to hype song for when you're getting ready for a horse show?
Oh man, I don't know if I have a song, but as you've probably noticed at some of the shows, I'm a big fan of 80s and 90s rock and 90s country.
Okay.
There's a lot of that. I mean, there's some newer stuff, and there's some, one of my all-time favorite bands is the Beach Boys. So I go back as far as the 60s stuff too. If I had to listen to one band on repeat though, it would probably be Collective Soul. They're
All
kind of my
right.
favorite band.
Okay. If you could announce a show, um, announce or show at any event, what would it be?
I would love to announce the Quarter Horse Congress.
Mm,
That would be incredible, I think.
cool. Favorite snack or drink to keep your voice announcer ready?
Um, so I like to do breakfast sandwich to start the day every day, and then
Uh-huh.
Diet Mountain Dew, and I've actually got one right here with me. Um,
Perfect.
I'm not a coffee guy. I don't do coffee, so the Diet Mountain Dew is kind of what gets me through the day.
Same. We had that conversation before we started. I'm a
Yep.
fully leaded Mountain Dew person, but
Yep.
yes, it's good stuff. And last but not least, if you weren't showing or announcing, what would you be doing instead?
So my real job is as an environmental consultant for an agricultural company, an agricultural consulting company. And
Mm-hmm.
like I tell everybody, that's a whole lot of words to say that I help big farms, mostly big dairies, with government compliance. Um, but if I could have any job on the planet, I'd either be a singer, which I'm not very good at, and my wife will tell you that. Although Austin and I, we do have a pretty storied karaoke career, but that's a whole different
Okay.
conversation.
All right.
Um,
Another episode.
yeah, or I'd be in coaching.
Cool. What
Yeah.
sport?
So I've coached a lot of baseball and a lot of basketball. So honestly, either one of those.
Okay. Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks for
Yeah.
hanging out with me
Thanks for having me.
and giving us absolutely happy to have you and thankful for your perspective, helping build into us as a community and
Yeah,
an industry. So look forward to seeing you in the center of the pen.
that would be great.
All right. I'll try to keep my cool.
Okay.
I'll come by you. Well, thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.